Okay, so I'm bad at math. I've always been a dreamer. I've always been optimistic. And I'm that person that really thinks that if you just put your mind to something, you can actually do it. I always won those art contests, I won science fairs, but I always had one Achilles heel my entire life, and it was math. No matter how hard I worked at it, I never could get it. Mom, remember integers? On the kitchen table, my mom and dad and pieces of paper, and there are lines going this way and lines going that way and a zero in the middle, and I just couldn't ever get it. In the 6th grade, I got a ray of hope, though. Did y'all know that Einstein couldn't add? Did anybody know that? Actually, that theory has been debunked, but I did learn that in the 6th grade. And so when it was time for the teacher to say who was going into the accelerated math program, despite my B's and C's that I'd been getting on all the quizzes and homework, I thought maybe my name was on the list. You know, like there's an inner genius in there, their teaching was really bad, and I was going to be on that list. I was not on that list. And all year, I would look over at that table of mostly boys and think, yeah, y'all are superior to me, for sure. So in the 8th grade, I joined Math Olympiads, which is a real head scratcher, because I never got one question right, yet I persisted. And so the fun and games kind of ended, though, in high school, where I couldn't budge past a 23 on my ACT, which meant Davidson, Washington, and Lee, my dreams of going there were over. I remember those rejection letters. I don't remember exactly what they said, but I'm pretty sure that it said something like, blah, 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 because you can't do math, and we know that only people who can do math are ever going to be successful. I think that was in there, right? So I go to a great school. I go to a women's college in North Carolina, and it come out with a bang, so I got a 4.0, my first one I'd ever gotten, my first year. And then I decided to, I was pretty good here. I was going to be a business major. And the first thing you got to do is you got to take math. And so I remediated, and I was like, I'm going to nail college algebra. I did not nail college algebra. And so I went on to graduate pretty well at this school, and I joined the Jesuit Volunteer Corps because they're okay with math screw-ups. And so I went out to Arizona, and people started noticing what I was doing out there. I was working in homelessness, and after a couple of years, this guy said, hey, I went to Harvard, and I think you should too. And I was like, okay, cool. And so he helped me with my application, but he said, you're going to have to take the GRE. Now, there is a minimum score that you have to get, just to get accepted, not to look good, but just to get accepted. And so after shoving a lot of my extra money at a tutor, let's just say I nailed the minimum score, and by some miracle actually did get into Harvard. So this is where the story gets really weird. So I'm at Harvard, and I'm studying national security policy. And so there's this investment bank back home that, as I'm graduating, it turns out they're looking for an associate to work under their security and defense technology analyst. So I'm thinking this is the most amazing opportunity of a lifetime to come back to my hometown and work for an investment bank, and they're probably thinking, oh, there's this girl. She's at Harvard. She must be a math genius. But you don't see where this is going. So if you can imagine 8 to 10 hours a day of me doing math, it is exactly as painful as it sounds, and there's no amount of professionally prescribed Adderall that would fix that situation. And then I had to take the CFA exam, which is what you have to do as an analyst. And it's 3 very rigorous exams. You take one after the other. My colleagues had all passed. I couldn't get past level 1. But the real day was there in New York, and I was representing our stock list, and I was going to tell this genius, math genius, that was a money manager, in his Park Avenue office, and he was surrounded by his math genius research associates, and I'm pretty sure were math genius sales associates with me. And my job was just to get it right. And so whereas everybody else could rattle things off from memory, I prepared like 10 times more than anybody else, and I had it committed to memory, only I made the fatal mistake. I mixed up millions with billions. And so obviously the math genius in front of me, like he knew that wasn't right. He, corrected me on the spot. But you know that feeling when you're embarrassed and you're so embarrassed you actually feel the level of embarrassment rise. So you know that like the red is like starting to come up and it kind of coats your head like a cocoon. So this was happening, and I realized at that moment that everyone knew I was a math fraud. Okay, so in 2008, the stock market crashed. And it was crashing on a whole bunch of people who had bought houses that they couldn't afford. Now remember where I was right after college? I was in Arizona at the height of the housing boom. And I'll never forget the city of Tempe, they had this like home ownership program, and they approached me. I was making $23,000 a year, and they said, look, we can get you into a house. Let us help you do that. We think you can afford about a $200,000 house. And I was like, oh, great. So I called up my parents. I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to buy a house. And my dad was like, no, you're not. You live in an old apartment, in the bad part of town with another broke girlfriend. There is no way that you can go buy a house. And so, the math didn't add up, so I didn't buy the house. But the stock market now is crashing on my friends who had bought those houses. So this led me to ask the question, okay, you turn on the TV, every single commercial you see is a financial commercial, right? It's like there are tons of people out there who want to give you tons of financial advice, but why does it seem like so many people didn't get financial advice, like don't buy that house? And so then you start looking at it and you go, oh my God, this is kind of crazy. Here's why. Because all financial advice comes into one of two buckets. One bucket is someone trying to sell you something. That's not advice. The other bucket is they say, go grab that $500,000 that you have under your mattress and bring it to me, and then I'll invest it, and in exchange for that, I'll give you advice. This is why people don't get financial advice. So in 2011, I thought, I'm going to try to fix this. So I started a financial company where I charge by the hour. Now, interestingly, there are a ton of people who need to do this. So I found myself all day doing math. But this is the first time that I was doing math that didn't feel anything like the math I'd done before. Because my math was all of a sudden colorful. It was full of visions. It's that young couple who's got a 1-year-old, and we're watching him actually walk across the college stage debt-free. A few years later, that same couple is giddily going to their last day on the job before they retire. That was the math that I was doing. And so the company continued to grow. And remember that CFA that I couldn't pass? Well, you just hire people who have passed it, which is essentially what I did. And so 2 CFAs have joined this, and we've grown. So, we've got clients in over 40 states now, and we have advised on over 225 million in assets. So to close, I know that my math will never help my kids' pre-cal homework. But my math actually has a shot at helping people one day retire. And for that reason, I think my math might actually change the world. Thank you.